Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Lefebvre, and today I am answering your burning questions. Well, I don't actually know if they're burning questions. They're just questions you guys had for me when I asked you on Patreon and YouTube and Instagram, and today I'm going to answer them. So let's jump in and get started. Okay, so like I said, I asked you guys on a bunch of my different platforms if you had any questions for me. Could be business related, watercolor related, or even personal questions for me. And you guys asked, and I'm here to answer. There are some really great questions, so let's get started. Okay, so for the first category that I'm going to address is kind of the working life of YouTube and being a working artist, because a lot of people had questions about that. So the first question I have is and I have my notes here just so I'm not just like texting. What tips do you have for making YouTube sustainable? Balancing it, growing community, improving videos, skills, and making it financially sustainable. So I love YouTube. It has been my means of being able to support my family. This is my full-time job. But I will say that YouTube is a game, and it's a game that you have to know how to play, and a lot of us don't. It can be very tricky because in some ways you don't have a lot of control. But my suggestions are trying to find what works for your channel. And that can take a lot of practice because you have to find your audience. You have to find out what they want. And then you have to find ways that make it work. Now, there's also a lot of these little side pieces that go along with it of, getting the right thumbnails to get people to want to click on your videos, addressing subjects that people want to watch. And it's kind of a game where you have to figure out how you are going to get people to watch you so you can make a living off YouTube. So for those of you who don't know, I do get paid from YouTube. I get paid based on view counts from the ads that run within my videos. So this is how YouTubers make money. And it can be a pretty great paycheck. But again, it takes a lot of time and trial and error to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. And the thing with YouTube is that there's going to be like peaks and valleys of revenue because there are slower seasons of YouTube. I find a lot of the time in the summer, views are down, people are out, people are doing things, people have time off. Usually in the winter, we're all kind of huddled up, maybe looking for a new hobby. So views are a little bit higher then, but it's all kind of just working the system and trying to figure out what works for you and your channel and your audience. My suggestion is to kind of just play around and figure it out and take notes. There are also a lot of great YouTubers out there that give tons of amazing tips on how to grow your channel and make it sustainable. So definitely look that up. You can just type in the search bar and a bunch of stuff will pop up, and there's a really great, there's a lot of valuable information out there. So definitely check that out. But YouTube is a game, and it can be a tough one at times. I'm very grateful for it, but it's something that you really have to work for. Okay, the second one is, at what point did you decide that you were good enough to start a YouTube channel? What motivated you? So I never thought I was good enough to start a YouTube channel. And I think that's a misconception with a lot of people and just art in general, that they feel like they have to be good enough or at a set skill level to be able to teach or sell their art. And I don't believe that's true, because when I started, I wasn't a professional. What I had was a background in teaching. I used to teach kindergarten and I was an early childhood educator. So I had that background in teaching, which I loved, and I loved art. I wouldn't say I was great at it, but I had a knack for breaking things down and teaching it. And that's what I wanted to share. I didn't by any means think that I was a great artist. I just thought, hey, this is something I love and I kind of want to share it and teach it. And so I made my first couple YouTube videos, and it took a while, but then it did take off and we are here where we are today. But I never thought I was good enough. And I still don't think I'm good enough. Like, I don't think I'm a good artist, but there are so many other artists that I actually admire their work. And for me, I think my skill is teaching, if that makes sense. So my advice to you is to just start and see what happens, because also filming videos takes a lot of skill, believe it or not. If you look back to my first videos on YouTube, I felt so unnatural and uncomfortable in front of the camera. So getting started as soon as possible, getting used to talking to a camera, is quite a skill that needs to be developed with just practice and time. So don't wait until you feel like you're good enough at something. Just start and then build that way, because that's the only way you will get better. Okay, so another question is, what is the best way to make an income from art? How can one start their journey to become a full-time artist? So there are many different streams that you can go down. It doesn't have to be YouTube. It doesn't necessarily have to be teaching. I don't know what the best way to make an income is, because so many people do it differently. There's people that sell their artwork for thousands of dollars, which my art would not go for thousands of dollars, so that wouldn't be good for me. Like I said, my knack is teaching, so that's what I found was best for me, and I'm going to be teaching in person soon, so hopefully that will do well. But the best way, I have no idea. It depends on who you are, what you create, and how you do it. But I definitely suggest exploring different options, taking a look around, seeing what the market's like, seeing what the competition's like as well, because you do have to take into consideration other people that are doing the same thing as you and what's going to set you apart. So I'd say just go for it in whatever stream you want to go down, but do your research and just give it a try. Okay, another question. How much did you charge for your artwork when you were just starting out? So I've never been one to actually sell my art. I always felt very uncomfortable. And I think another one of the questions was, how did you price it? I felt so uncomfortable putting a price on my artwork, because I never felt it was good enough. And people would be like, you could charge so much more for that. But I would feel guilty because it's something I enjoyed. I am not the person to ask for this, because I don't sell my art and I still feel uncomfortable with it. But I remember when I was first starting out, before I was teaching, my friends and family were just saying, can I pay you to do this? And I would say, how much do you think? Which I don't think is the right way to do it. But that's kind of how I used to do it. I would ask them what they would think it's worth and then would go with that, but I don't recommend it. I'm sure there are videos from other artists on how to price your work, so I would definitely check that out. Okay, another one. As a full-time artist, do you ever worry that you'll have to go back to a traditional job? I'd say no, because I think I found my knack with what I'm doing. So before this, I was teaching kindergarten, and then I went on maternity leave when I had my older son, Noah. I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. Then I started this on the side. It was just something I wanted to do for fun. It was not something that I was like, I'm going to make a career out of this. This was not in the cards at all. It kind of just happened, and I love it. So my plan was to be a stay-at-home mom. But now that I've done this, and I know that YouTube is not a guarantee. Patreon, anything online is not going to be a guarantee forever. We don't know what the world's going to look like at some point, but I do have faith in my teaching ability and what I have to give, that there will always be something artistic that I can share with the world to use as my career. I don't think I'll ever go back to teaching in the classroom. I loved it, but it's just not for me anymore. I want to focus on art. So if it's not going to be YouTube, because I can't see myself doing this forever. Like, it's fun. I've been doing this for 5 years now, and even that's been, a bit of a struggle at times, but I can't see myself doing this forever. And I think the thing that's important is to always have goals, and new goals changing and growing. And I definitely have goals, and, traveling and teaching is a new thing that's coming up. I'm going to France soon, teaching in person. And then there's other things I'd like to do as well. So I don't think I'll ever go back to a traditional job. I think this will always be some sort of career for me, whether it's teaching online or in person or just being artistic in general. Okay, so the last question in this category, you seem to be putting out more content that appears less stressful to you than a couple years ago. What would you say changed to make it work for you? So I've had a lot of ups and downs with creating videos and content. And I think like anyone else, I am going to have those moments where I really enjoy creating and moments where I really don't enjoy creating. And for a lot of us who don't do this as a job, you can walk away and just keep living your life. But unfortunately, but not unfortunately, this is my job and I can't walk away. So you get to see that in real time. My moments where I'm not as inspired, you get to see those moments on YouTube, and I will tell you, I'm really not feeling this, guys, or I'm struggling with my mental health, and there's no way that I can just kind of get away from that. I have to do this. Not have to, but I have to do my job. I have to do a job to support my family. So there's no walking away and taking breaks when I don't feel inspired. And that is probably one of the toughest parts of this job, is that I still have to, like anyone with their job, have to show up, inspire other people, create something, and, act like this is what I love to do all the time, which in reality isn't something I love to do all the time. Lately, I have been enjoying it this past few months, at least, with all the holiday lives have been so exciting. And I remember, was it last year or the year before, I was doing holiday tutorials and I was just like, oh, I don't want to do this. But this year, I don't know, it felt inspiring. There's also been a lot more new viewers to the community that are just starting out and getting excited and passionate, and I'm really enjoying teaching them. I've given myself a little bit more time to be creative on my own. Also, having the kids both in school now has given me more time, which I think has released a lot of pressure, because before this, which I'll talk about at the end of personal stuff, I didn't have the time. I was still half time at home with the kids and then half time doing this. So I was strapped for time, and that was very, very stressful. So I think releasing the stress of having to be a stay-at-home mom part-time with this job was a lot on me. So now that I have 5 days a week for the first time in 6 years to work on something, it's a lot less stressful, and I'm really enjoying it. Okay, so the next kind of category of questions that I got, a lot of people were asking me about confidence and how to feel good about painting. So we're going to address some of those because I know we all deal with it. Okay, so one of the questions is how to stop being afraid to gift your paintings for the fear they aren't good enough. I don't think you should ever be afraid to gift your paintings. I think art is a gift and creativity is a gift, and people who receive it will just be grateful that you took time and effort to create something for them. But I understand the fear, because I think that's partially why I don't create to gift or sell, because I'm like, what if it's not good enough? So I totally understand that mentality, but a lot of your friends and family will love what you do and appreciate it. So get rid of that fear and try not to focus on creating to gift. Create for yourself, because that's when the joy really comes out, and you'll create pieces that you love, and then you'll naturally just want to spread that love with others and give it to them. Okay, how to stick with finishing a painting when you've already decided you don't like it. Okay, so this happens a lot to all of us. I've definitely started paintings where I'm like, this sucks, and I just want to rip it up and throw it in the trash. Sometimes I do that. I don't recommend that, because there is a benefit to always finishing a painting, even if it sucks. And if you're halfway through, okay, there's two things. There's always an ugly stage with paintings where you're halfway through and you're like, this is garbage. And you just can't see that ending, that finish line where it looks good. But there's always an ugly stage. You really need to get through it, because sometimes you will surprise yourself and it will become one of your favorite paintings. That's one thing. Always finish a painting, because they all have ugly stages. You just need to get through that stage. 2, if it's really, really sad and, doesn't seem like it's savable, this is your time to be creative. This is your time to try out things that you don't know if they would have worked, because now what's the worst you're going to do? You're going to throw in the garbage anyway. Try and paint that tree where you thought maybe it would look good, but you weren't sure. Give it a try. Try a new technique. Try something different that you're too afraid to mess up all your good paintings with, and try something new. What would happen if you just painted over the whole thing with a dark color and then, I don't know, got some gouache out and painted over it? Try to experiment with those paintings that are not working out, because with every painting that doesn't work out, you learn something. So take it as a learning opportunity and an opportunity to experiment and try new things. That's my advice. Okay, tips to get out of self-critic mode. I've been stuck for a while. I don't think I have any advice for that, because I am still in all those self-critic modes. I try to get out of it, but I think it's just natural. We are our own worst critics, and there's still things that I look at that I do and I'm just like, what was that? It's not good. But try and look at it from a learning perspective is what I try and tell myself. If things don't work out, I learned something from it. I learned what worked and what didn't work. And that's the only way you're going to get better. So take every failed or missed painting as a learning opportunity. Okay. We're not all going to be incredible painters to start with. It's something you have to build and develop over time. So just think that you're just building up those skills now and don't be so hard on yourself. Okay. How did you stay motivated as a beginner? Well, I loved it. I didn't do it because I was good. I found myself thinking about coming home to painting as like this exciting moment of my day after work that I was just always thrilled to come home and do. And it wasn't any good. I remember, because it was at the beginning, I didn't look up any tutorials on YouTube. I don't think there were many when I started, back in 2016 at least. It wasn't a thing, or at least that I knew, where a lot of people had YouTube channels where they were teaching these things. What they did have was Instagram videos that were like 15 seconds long, but mostly photos of like a photo of a watercolor thing. And I was like, that looks really cool. And I would try it out. And that was kind of my inspiration. It was just something I wanted to do, but it wasn't something where I was like, there wasn't the pressure for it to be a career or something to make anything out of. It was like a hobby that I was just like super obsessed with that eventually became my career. But I just loved it. That was my motivation, is I really just enjoyed the process of painting with watercolor. Okay, so the last question. If you're having a bad day where you are uninspired to paint, what is your go-to subject matter or paint method to help you start a painting that day? If I'm not feeling it, I won't paint. But if I have this urge where I want to paint something and I don't know what, or if I'm having a bad day and I'm like, if I try something and it doesn't work, I'm probably going to have a meltdown. I will create like a swatch card or a color chart where I'm literally just swatching colors from a palette onto a paper, maybe in a fun way, or making like a color mixing chart. That way I'm getting that therapeutic kind of painting feel for the day without the pressure to create an actual painting. And sometimes just doing like color charts and stuff like that can be really therapeutic and helpful to do, and beautiful for your office or your room just to hang up on the wall. I'm trying to see if I have any. So like I swatched this one, like my ultimate palette. Things like these doesn't take a lot of skill, but they're fun to do and they're useful. So just creating color charts, even just like swatching, I don't know, a new set of crayons or something, mixing colors, coming up with color palettes on the back. This kind of stuff is very therapeutic, and I'll find myself doing that if I want to paint and nothing will satisfy me in those moments. That's always the safest option. Otherwise, leaves or flowers. Okay, so our next category is kind of about creating about supplies and just painting stuff. So the first question is how to paint my own watercolor. What I think they mean is how to paint your own composition, to come up with your own composition. And that's definitely something that is a skill that you build, because a lot of us are copying tutorials, which is totally fine. And I think that's a great way to learn. But eventually you want to create your own compositions. So sometimes, I think at the beginning, what I would do is take elements from different compositions that I liked. So I would look up Pinterest or other artists, and I would pick little things that I liked out of their artwork and then try to mimic them in a different composition, but also trying different things. Like, I don't ever want you to go into a painting thinking, I'm going to create a masterpiece today. You need to go into it thinking, I'm going to try something new today, and know that it might not work, and sometimes it will. But when you're creating your own composition, take elements that you like. So inspiration from a photo, like an actual photograph, not anyone else's work, but like a photo or something you see outside. Go take your own photos. And you can get inspiration from the colors or the composition itself. Another idea before you actually start painting is to create little sketches of compositions to see where things can be placed so it looks good, but planning it out and stuff like that is just gaining inspiration from things around you. I really like Pinterest for photos and stuff like that, for inspiration, but yeah, that's how I suggest you do it. Okay, can you show us the painting you are most proud of that I painted? So this is a funny thing, is I don't have one. I don't think I've ever, sadly, created a painting that I'm like, oh my God, I love this. I did this one recently, which is small, for YouTube, that I really love, but I mean, it's not like my favorite painting ever. I love the colors. I love like little elements of it, but I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite painting. I also don't feel like I paint enough for me to create art. I create to teach. So I think that's something in the new year that I really want to develop more, is maybe even creating a collection of art to sell. I don't know. That feels ambitious, but I don't really have one, to be honest. How long did it take you to find your own style, and what inspired you the most? So there's parts of me that feel like I still don't have my own style. I know other people say like, oh, I noticed that's an Emma Lefebvre painting. I'm like, do you? Like, I don't know. Like there's other artists I can see and be like, oh yeah, that's them. But I don't know if I have a style. I think I do, but I don't know, because there's times where I make things very, very loose, like my loose florals, but then there's other times where they're a bit more detailed. So I don't know, but I think the only way I can explain to create your own style is to paint. Try different things. Like I said, take elements from other artists that really speak to you and try and put your own twist on it. It's really hard to see where your style comes from at the beginning, because a lot of us are following tutorials. But I think giving yourself more opportunities to experiment and try new things will really help with that. So give it a try. Okay, if you had unlimited time to create just for yourself, what would you most want to create, and what materials would you choose? So that's a really good question. If I did not have a job, if I did not have to create videos, and I had just all the time to create something for myself, I think there are two things. I would try to create some sort of watercolor collection of paintings and really paint for myself. I just feel like I don't have the time right now, and work kind of impedes my creativity in a bit, because I do this for work and then I'm tired. And what used to be my go-to to relax is not necessarily my go-to relax anymore, which I'm not complaining, because I love this job, but it's not my thing that at the end of the day, after painting all day and teaching all day, I want to create for myself. I don't feel like I'm there. That might also just be insecurities on myself as an artist. But if I didn't have this as a job and I just had all the time in the world, I would be writing and illustrating children's books. I have wanted to do that since I was a teenager. It has always been a goal of mine. And I feel like once my kids are a little bit older and maybe they're too cool to hang out with mom and dad and don't need us as much, and they're teenagers or something, that will be my new passion outside of teaching. I might leave, we're talking like 10 years from now. I might leave teaching watercolor for a bit and really focus on creating books, because that's something I've always wanted to do. And I really hope I get the chance to do it. So I just need time, I think. If you were starting new today, what would you buy? Ooh, that's exciting, but also hard, because I have so many watercolors, right? And I've tried out so many brands and I love them all. There's not one brand that really sticks out to me. It's like, yes, like right now I'm using my Shinhan watercolors in this palette, which I love, but like, I love my Paul Rubens. I like my, my Winsor & Newton, the Michael Harding. Like there's not one brand that I think I would stick to. If I was starting out, I would probably have to be on a budget. So I would probably pick a pan set of like Mei Liang or Paul Rubens watercolors, which have all the colors you need. And then brushes, I don't know, like I wouldn't have my own brushes if I was just starting out, although I do recommend them. They're in the description below. You can buy my brush sets. But I think the way I started was a really great way to start. What I started with were Winsor & Newton Cotman tubes. I had 5 that I got from a workshop of like a limited palette, and I just built off of that. I started with the tubes, and I think that was really beneficial to me, and having a limited palette, because it really taught me how to mix colors and work with a limited palette, which was really valuable. And then the brushes that I started with were Princeton snap brushes, which were super inexpensive, but I loved the snap on them, the stiffness. I felt they were perfect for beginners like me. And then paper. Arches was my go-to. It still is. It's just more expensive, so I don't use it as often. But the Academy watercolor paper, probably. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question because I would want to keep it budget friendly for sure. Okay, here's another question. If you had unlimited funds, which art supplies would you consider buying? And which watercolor paints are your absolute favorite? So like I said, I've tried a bunch of professional ones. I don't know if I get in trouble for saying this. I don't find a difference between a lot of professional brands. I really don't. So there's not one professional brand that I'm like, yep, these ones. Because like I said, I love Shinhan. I love the Paul Rubens. I love Winsor & Newton. I haven't really tried too many Daniel Smith, but I know people love those. Like, I don't think you can go wrong with a professional watercolor brand. And I might be wrong about that, but I don't notice a huge difference. Like, you can't squeeze a paint tube in front of me, paint with it, and be like, yep, that's definitely Winsor & Newton. It doesn't make a difference to me, but professional versus student grade makes a huge difference. But any professional watercolor, really, I don't know. Any of them. Okay, have you tried acrylic paint? Pros and cons. Yes, actually, before watercolor, I used to paint with acrylic like a lot. Back in my early 20s, like I would get canvases from the dollar store and I would do these big paintings. And I loved it. That's how I started painting. But what drew me to watercolor was its portability. It was easy to open up and clean up. You didn't have to set up, a big palette of paint that they're gonna dry if you have to walk away. It was just, acrylic was way more messy and way more involved. And when I was in my 20s, and I had all the time in the world, that was easy. Watercolor really spoke to me a lot more too when I had my son, because I would try and paint while he was napping, and I could literally just stop mid-painting and go tend to him and then come back hours later, and my setup would be fine. It would be minimal, nothing dried where I couldn't use it again, and it was perfect. So I thought it was the best option for me. But acrylic, I like it. It's just not, I also don't love the look of it as much as I like watercolor. I find watercolor to be softer and more flowy, and acrylic is just a little bit more bold, but I enjoy it. It's just not something I like to do as much anymore. Okay, what is your favorite palette for using watercolors that comes in tubes? I have a few palettes. My original palettes I got off Amazon for like $10. They're like little plastic, not even little plastic palettes. Hold on. I started with these plastic palettes. It sounds like it's falling out. This is like an old, or like a minimal one. And these are great. I like how you can fold it and bring it with you. These are good. But then I got a huge one from Shinhan, which is beautiful, but it's huge. And then recently you've probably seen me use this one, which is like Mr. Pen or something on Amazon. It was like maybe $20, but I really actually enjoy this. And there's like another mixing well at the back. You don't have as much room for like a crazy amount of colors, but I've been really enjoying this. And again, I like ones that fold, that you can keep clean and portable. Okay, and the last question is, how do you keep all of your supplies organized? I am not an organized person at all. I have drawers and stuff. Like I have those brush things behind me. Those are like more of my display brushes, but like the brushes I use are just in a cup on my desk. I have drawer. I'm awful at organizing. I don't suggest you take tips from me. They're in drawers. My paintings some of them are like in stacks on my wall. Past paintings are in big see-through tubs. I don't, and my sketchbooks. I don't have any organizing tips at all. Okay, and then now the next category is a little bit about me. So, how many years have you been painting? I have always loved painting and drawing my whole life, but I really started with watercolor back in 2016, May 20th or something of 2016. It's kind of part of my story. I was feeling really depressed, going through a bad rut, and I decided one day to just go to Michael's, and I hadn't really been to a Michael's, but I was like, I'm going to go to an art store. And I remember just walking through it and going, oh my God, I love being here. I had forgotten how much I loved being at an art store, and I picked up really cheap kid watercolors, dollar store brushes, and really cheap artist loft paper, and came home and painted and painted and painted and painted, and I haven't stopped since. How long have you and Matt been together, and where did you meet? You're so cute together. So Matt and I met back in 2012, and we met online. Before there were dating apps, there was dating websites, and that's where we met. And we actually didn't live too far from each other. But yeah, so we met on a dating website. That's how old it is. And we got engaged 2014, married 2015, and then kids, and the rest is history. How is it to be a mom of 2 boys from a mom of 2 girls? Insane. I love my kids so much. They are so cute, so much fun, but they have so much energy, and they like to launch themselves off furniture and play with lightsabers, and it's not a moment of peace a lot of the time. I see a lot of my friends who have girls, and they sit and they color and make bracelets, and my kids are launching themselves off the couch, screaming and chasing. They like to run laps. It's exhausting. They're so cute. They're so much fun. But I grew up with just my mom in a very quiet, girly household, and now I'm stuck living with 3 boys and a male dog. It's interesting. That's all I can say. It's busy. How do you find the time to paint with 2 little ones and manage to exercise too? Well, this is my job. So 5 days a week, I have 5 days a week to paint and film, and I go to the gym on my lunch break. And I'm very blessed, and I know that. When I first started this, Noah was under a year, and I had just started painting, and during that time, I painted during naps and when he'd go to sleep at night. That was my time, and I started my YouTube channel then, and I would get it done during his nap time, and then I would edit on my phone with him there while I was playing with him. I took the time, and I didn't exercise then. But yeah, so that's how I did it. But now it's my full-time job, so I get the chance to do that now, and I know how lucky I am. You mentioned your husband does a podcast. He doesn't do a podcast. He has a YouTube channel. Just curious where his interest is. So my husband, Matt, my manager, he is my YouTube guy. He worked in advertising agencies for a long time. Then he built his own company. He was a YouTuber for Canada Computers a long time ago. He is a tech computer building kind of guy. And as of right now, he is my video editor and my manager and my everything tech guy. He sets up my office and all that stuff. But yeah, he's really into gaming and tech and computers and all that stuff. So he does have a YouTube channel that he's trying to ramp up himself. Again, because he took a break for a long time because he was the primary stay-at-home with Miles. And so now that they're both at school, he's kind of trying to build that back up for himself. Okay, do you ever look back at your initial paintings and see the progress you've made? Any chance of seeing some of those initial paintings? Yes, and I've done a few videos where I look back at some of my stuff. They're all packed away. I don't know if I have one. Yeah, I think this is the only one I have in there. But I think this is probably 2019 when I was starting out. I started 2016 really painting, so they're some really old ones. My mom has a bunch of them, and she likes to look at them for inspiration for herself because she's starting out. But this is after I took 2 workshops. This is, I don't know if you can see. This is Canson XL paper, which is not good paper. And these were student watercolors, but look at the bleeds, and it's not great. It's not great at all. Learning how to paint leaves. Oh, focus. To paint florals. I think this was maybe 2018 or 2019. So I was trying to figure out compositions and stuff. It's not horrible. This is when I got better. This is when I was I'm starting to get better at this. Yeah, I just kept painting flowers over and over and over again. And yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of flowers in here. Yeah, I think this is 2018, 2019 when I started teaching or was ramping up to teach. So I wasn't great then, but it wasn't bad. Okay, and that's about it. So those are the questions that I picked to be answered. There were a few technique questions that I'm planning to answer in a video of struggles you guys are having. I thought that would be separate so I can do some demonstrations, but that's about it. Those are a bunch of the great questions you guys had for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the answers, maybe gained a little bit of insight, inspiration, anything from it. And if you guys have any more questions, feel free to answer in the comments below. Maybe I'll do another video if you're interested, and I hope you enjoyed it. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're not already subscribed. Follow me on all my other platforms. Patreon is banging over there. We're doing some really fun challenges, extra banging. Who am I? We're doing some really fun challenges. I have Patreon exclusive tutorials that are available nowhere else, printables, tracing pages and downloads. It's really fun over there. Hope you guys can check it out. Instagram, I'm always posting new little reels and videos, little tips and tricks over there. And yeah, hope you guys can follow along. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in our next video.